because the American people do not trust these legacy gatekeepers anymore. And all of this, I think, is consequences of that broader dynamic.
Okay, I asked you a very direct question. I did not hear a yes or a no in your answer. I heard a maybe.
Yeah, ultimately, these are business decisions for CBS to make and for these outfits to make. And I'm, shocked at the type of stuff that you just played. They don't find to be in their profitable business interests.
All right, folks, that was a Fox News host being visibly stunned by Donald Trump's openly partisan and malicious FCC chair, Brendan Carr, when being asked about whether Trump and the FCC are going to use state power to punish networks and programs that they believe are liberally biased. And as you'll see from this interview and a subsequent interview on a different network, Brendan Carr, who once wore a Trump lapel pin, who is an author, one of the many authors of Project 2025, a naked, transparent Trump partisan, he is deliberately avoiding giving direct answers because the signal is, yes, the Trump administration will use its power on the Federal Communications Commission to go after networks and programs that Trump doesn't like. And again, even this Fox News host is stunned. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play here. Brendan Carr is an underratedly dangerous member of the Trump administration. He's the chair of the Federal Communications Commission, and he is wielding his influence to try to bring the media to heel in a more Trump-friendly way.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Did President Trump have anything to do with the cancellation of Stephen Colbert's show?
Well, here's what's important to keep in mind is a broader dynamic. When President Trump ran for election, he ran right at these legacy broadcast media outfits and the New York and Hollywood elites that are behind it, and he smashed the facade that these are gatekeepers that can control what Americans think and what Americans can say. And once you do that, you've exposed the business model of a lot of these outfits as being nothing more than a partisan circus. And so I think there's a lot of consequences that are flowing from President Trump deciding, I'm not going to play by the rules of politicians in the past and let these legacy outfits dictate the narratives in the terms of the debate. And he's succeeding. Just look at what's happening. NPR has been defunded. PBS has been defunded. Colbert is getting cancer. You've got anchors and news media personalities.
Did he say getting canceled or getting cancer? Are you giving Stephen Colbert cancer?
Losing their jobs. Again, all of this is downstream of President Trump's decision to stand up. And he stood up for the American people because the American people do not trust these legacy gatekeepers anymore. And all of this, I think, is consequences of that broader dynamic.
Okay, I asked you a very direct question. I did not hear a yes or a no in your answer.
So you see how this all feeds in? He's like, hey, did the sitting president of the United States effectively push a member of the media to be fired from their job? And then he basically says, yes, but I don't want to come out and say it. But there are consequences. Holy shit. Holy authoritarian Batman. And it gets worse. Again, not just in this Fox News interview, but in a subsequent interview.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. Did President Trump let's go to The View, shall we? Joy Behar yesterday said this.
First of all, who tried to overthrow the government on January 6th?
Wait, let me think. Who
was that again? That was not Obama. The thing about him is that he's so jealous of Obama because Obama is everything that he is not.
Yeah.
Trim. Smart. Handsome. Happily married. And can sing Al Green's song, Let's Stay Together, better than Al Green.
Yeah.
And Trump cannot stand it. It's driving him crazy. Jealousy is not green is not a good color.
That from yesterday. Who knows what happens today? The White House chose to respond to that. And this is what they said. Joy Behar is an irrelevant loser suffering from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. It's no surprise that The View's ratings hit an all-time low last year. She should self-reflect on her own jealousy of President Trump's historic popularity before her show is the next to be pulled off air, end quote. Is The View now in the crosshairs of this administration?
Look, it's entirely possible that there's issues over there. I mean, again, stepping back, this broader dynamic, once President Trump has exposed these media gatekeepers and smashed this facade, there's a lot of consequences. I think the consequences of that aren't quite finished. And look, The View's got a lot of challenges there. It wasn't that long ago, I think one episode, one show alone, they had to stop, interrupt the show, and read 4 separate legal notices to try to avoid legal liability. So I'm not surprised to hear people saying that their ratings are struggling.
So no, of course, we are not targeting The View. Obviously, if they break the law, just like if a Fox News program breaks the law, we'll be on it. But no, Donald Trump can have his beef with the View, and the FCC has nothing to do with it. Brendan Carr won't answer that question. Now, before I play some other clips, I want to remind you that actually yesterday, and I was going to do a video about it, but so many other things went on. The Trump administration, the FCC, finally approved a multi-billion-dollar pending merger between Skydance and Paramount. Paramount being the company that owns CBS, CBS being the company that Stephen Colbert works for and has now canceled his program. He'll be going off the air in May. CBS also owning 60 Minutes, Donald Trump having sued 60 Minutes for multiple billions of dollars over the Kamala Harris interview. And the entire time, there was a pending $8 billion merger between these two companies that the Trump administration held up. Well, after CBS settled over the Kamala Harris interview, paying Trump $16 million, after they announced that Stephen Colbert was being canceled, just days later, 2 days later, if I remember correctly, they announced that, actually, we're going to approve this merger. So the libertarian right-wing free speech advocacy group FIRE said this. FIRE statement on FCC approval of Skydance Paramount acquisition. This has been an unconstitutional shakedown from start to finish. Per the First Amendment, federal law, and longstanding precedent, the FCC has no business dictating the editorial choices of media outlets or conditioning merger approval on the viewpoints a network chooses to air. But yesterday, Chairman Carr crowed over his shameful success in doing just that. No federal bureaucrat should ever be allowed to play act as our nation's editor-in-chief. The chairman's hypocrisy is staggering. Less than a year ago, Brendan Carr, if you take him at his word, seemed to understand that the First Amendment bars the FCC from operating as the nation's speech police. But he's more than happy to wear that badge now. It's despicable. It really is. This man, Brendan Carr, again, I think is one of the most dangerous members of the Trump administration. And he's being glossed over in just staggering stuff. So this is a subsequent interview with Carr on CNBC. We're going to play some clips from that.
I wanted to reference some comments from Commissioner Ana Gomez and get your response, because your approval here has been under the microscope in the sense that, and we've talked about it, Sarah's asked you about it, I've asked you about it previously, the idea that there was a quid pro quo essentially between the FCC and the Trump administration in terms of you're allowing this deal to go forward only after they settled with the Trump administration and some of their some of the moves they had made to obviously say that they had done things incorrectly in terms of the use of interviews and the like. She wrote, the once independent FCC used its vast power to pressure Paramount to broker a private legal settlement and further erode press freedom. The agency's undermining legitimate efforts to combat discrimination and expand opportunity by overstepping its authority. And she says, after months of cowardly capitulation to this administration. What's your response to that?
No, listen, if you step back, what's happening here is, I think President Trump is fundamentally reshaping the media landscape. And the way he's doing that is when he ran for election, he ran directly at these legacy broadcast media outlets, ABC, NBC, CBS. For years, government officials just allowed those entities with execs sitting in Hollywood and New York to dictate the political narrative. And he has fundamentally changed the game. And you see that.
So what are they doing that's illegal? If media outlets have a conservative or liberal bias, what is inherently illegal about it? What are they doing that's unlawful that merits the FCC's intervention? And when you say that Donald Trump is reshaping the media landscape, it sure sounds like you are validating the very premise that was just levied against you. And a similar question is posed.
Yeah, and so, again, when Ana Gomez writes, you're imposing never-before-seen controls over newsroom decisions and editorial judgment in direct violation of the First Amendment, you say what?
I think it's time for a change. And the procedures that we put in place in this deal have lots of precedent. For instance, there's been ombudsmans put in place by the FCC before. We're putting a biased ombudsman in place here. We're addressing DEI. The prior FCC during the Biden years put pro-DEI commitments in different transactions. And so we're unwinding that type of approach. And we're frankly taking a trust but verify perspective here. I think
Trust but verify. Okay. So her response or her question to you about, are you defying the First Amendment? Well, it's time for a change. Okay. Again, just being pretty transparent about it. Here's another clip.
The timing was interesting, though, and so was the settlement where the CBS Paramount had to pay $16 million to President Trump to settle the lawsuit, and now some Democrats are saying this is just bribery. Did that need to happen for you to approve this deal? Was that part of it?
It's interesting to me, as the new owners of CBS came in, they made a commitment to making progress on bias and actually trying to move back towards fact-based journalism. And as soon as they did that, Democrats in the House all of a sudden launched an investigation. I guess we can't have that. I guess we can't have a return to fact-based journalism. Look, the reality is there's three very separate things going on here. There was this lawsuit involving President Trump, which was outside of the FCC, didn't have anything to do with us. We had this transaction before us, and we also have a news distortion complaint against CBS. The news distortion complaint is still pending at the FCC. We haven't made a final decision on that, but those are three separate things that have been.
So there were similar complaints against Fox News, for example, that were actually dismissed by the Biden administration because the Biden administration, even though they didn't like Fox News, felt that it would be too censorious and too chilling of First Amendment free speech protections, free press protections. So they dismissed those complaints. And instead, the FCC, Trump's FCC, has kept those complaints against Trump buried, but they resurrected complaints against networks that Trump doesn't like. Again, this is just so transparently shameless. In 2 days after the settlement was paid and Colbert was fired or canceled by CBS is when you greenlit the merger for Paramount. You're not even bothering to hide it. Here's another clip.
Although, Chair Carr, Colbert's a comedian, and you keep talking about journalism and fairness in news, but I guess where is that line between, we all remember Carson and Jay Leno giving Reagan the business. So where does that fit into this discussion?
Well, I think that's what's interesting about all of this is these late night shows, not just the late night shows, but across the board, they have such a storied history, and it's sort of sad to see what's happening to Colbert. They obviously can't get it done. They're not making money over there. But I think they need a course correction. And frankly, I think the media industry across this country needs a course correction. Again, the American people simply do not trust the mainstream media. And for broadcasters, again, different than cable, different than podcast, for broadcasters, they have a federal license, and they are obligated to operate in the public interest. And to the extent that we're starting to see some changes, I think that's a good thing. And frankly, I think it will help restore some of the trust.
Okay, but how does Stephen Colbert factor into this? He's a liberal comedian. He's not a journalist. What course correction do liberal comedians need? Do conservative comedians need a course correction? How does it work, Brendan? Because it sure looks like you're just going after people you don't like for political reasons.
What are your expectations for the new Paramount? Do you have any in terms of the new owners and what you expect to see, and or the consolidation that may still need to take place? Some of it may not have anything to do with the FCC, but others of it may.
Yeah, ultimately, it's a trust but verify approach when it comes to that. I'm hopeful. I really like some of the commitments that they've made, again, towards addressing bias and to fact-based reporting. But again, to your point, there's really sort of seismic changes taking place across the media landscape.
What bias and fact-based, what are you talking about? Can you give specific examples? That's the problem that's really concerning, is he doesn't proffer any specific examples. So what it sounds like is you need to report things the way we prefer it that's politically beneficial to Donald Trump. Otherwise, you're going to face the wrath of the Trump administration's FCC. Again, I just want to remind you folks, if you have any doubt about how sinister Carr is in presentation and in substance, note that he stunned the shit out of a Fox News host live on air. And that's where we are. We have at least another 3.5 years of this, potentially more if J.D. Vance or whoever Trump's successor is wins the 2028 election. They're going for broke, and they are being so in your face about it. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.